most invaluable ROI of all, in my opinion, is helping an associate navigate through a very challenging situation. It could be a ORC with violence situation. It could be assault and battery. It could be a litany of things that shouldn't happen in retail, but unfortunately do. Having a person that specializes in the security operations center, the EPICenter, to be able to say, hey, how can I help? Okay, this is what we're going to do next. That guidance right there, it makes all the difference.
You're listening to the Retail Crime Intelligence Podcast by Auror, where we share actionable insights to help you reduce crime and violence in your stores.
My name is Julie Lawson. I'm the Director of Partnerships and Business Development over here at the Loss Prevention Foundation, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Today's webinar is Inside Ulta's SOC Center, Lessons for Retail Security, sponsored by Auror. Auror is the crime intelligence platform for retailers focused on preventing crime, reducing loss, and making stores safer. They do this by making it easy to report actionable intel, connect the dots on repeat offenders, and distribute actionable intelligence to teams to safely prevent crime in real time. Auror has offices in Denver, London, Melbourne, and Auckland to support its growing retail base, which includes the best and largest retailers in the world. Learn more at auror.co. So thank you so much for joining today's webinar. I'm actually really excited for this kind of fireside chat about Ulta SOC Center, and I'm going to introduce today's speakers. So today we have with us Mike Korso, Director of Loss Prevention Intelligence at Ulta, and Bobby Haskins, SVP of Law Enforcement and Retail at Auror. With that, I'll turn it over to Bobby.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. As always, awesome job leading up to this webinar, and thanks for all the coordination, partnership, and help over the last couple of weeks to get us here. And so thanks for attending. And then most importantly, Mr. Korso, Mike, thank you for your willingness to jump on, chat for 40, 45 minutes with me and talk through just some of your learnings around building a security operations center and what you've done and what the team has done at Ulta Beauty. So before we get into the funsies and the questions that I'm going to ask you, Mike, why don't you just give the audience a little flavor of who Mike is outside of work? Let's start there, and then we'll talk a little bit about your career and how you got into the current seat. But what does Mike like to do outside of work? What does Mike enjoy when he's not crushing it at Ulta Beauty?
Thanks, Bobby. I am a family man. I have a wife. I have an 11-year-old son. I'm a pretty avid Chicago sports fan. And hey, you want to talk about a holiday miracle? The Bears are leading the NFC North, and I never thought I'd get to say that again. So that's good.
It's actually impressive. As a Patriots fan, I'm shocked where we're at today, but pleasantly surprised. So it was good to see the Bears figuring it out in their league. So, Mike, you've been through a few different roles. I know you've been at Ulta for quite a few years now. You're at Amazon before that, but just talk through what's your career looked like up until this point, and then wrap it up with what are you doing today in your current role at Ulta?
Yeah, love it. I've been blessed, probably going to show my age here, but I've gotten to see loss prevention from a couple different angles and roles over the years. I've been at Ulta for about 7 years now. I get to lead the loss prevention intelligence program, and that includes the EPICenter team, which I'm very proud to talk about today. Prior to Ulta Beauty, I did work at Amazon. I was a regional LP and security manager for them. And previous to that, I spent a little over a decade at a company called Limited 2, and then Justice was the other company. And it was just an awesome place to be able to learn LP and experience it. And all that led to me to Ulta Beauty back in 2019.
It's fantastic. Talk about seeing a lot of different things. And if you think back to the early days, a lot's obviously changed since the Justice days. And I'm sure we could probably do another webinar on what you've learned over your career. So maybe we'll sign you up for one of those next time. But let's hone in on the Security Operations Center a bit for you, Mike. Just so the audience is clear, what does Ulta Beauty call their Security Operations Center?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bobby. We call it the EPICenter, and it's actually a abbreviation for Enterprise Protection and Intelligence Center. There's a lot of different ways to describe the centers. You hear GSOC, SOC. We branded ours as EPICenter because it fits our brand wonderfully.
That's awesome. I just want to make sure when the audience understands when you say EPICenter, you're actually talking about a security operations center, right? Everyone's got a slightly different name, but It's about the capability and about the functionality that team and that crew is doing. So that way you don't have to sit and, in your mind say EPICenter, but then out loud say SOC. We're just going to say EPICenter for the rest of the time today, so everyone knows. And Mike, how long has the EPICenter at Ulta been around? How many years since you established that facility and the team?
Yeah. Oh, great question. Let me see. On Saturday, we're going to anniversary 4 years in operation.
Fantastic. 4 years in ops. That's amazing. But if you look back and thinking about standing up the EPICenter, was there a catalyst event or was there some moment where you and your team at Ulta said, we need the EPICenter, we need a security operations center?
I would say there was a series of moments and opportunities that, as we think through how we continuously improve at Ulta Beauty, one milestone, it just stuck in my head, is after the whole COVID-19 reopening of retail, I think most people would agree that retail crime just looks a lot different. I mean, that's just the state of the game. So as we were looking at how can we support our associates at Ulta Beauty, our store associates, our business partners, a lot of the unlocks for how a centralized SOC could bring value were driven by that post-pandemic ORC crime influence state. So essentially that led myself and my senior manager who runs the EPICenter, we hypothesized if we were to take a model, a security operations model, build associate-centric workflows and have real-time support capabilities, so you're taking live calls from store associates, we could be a real differentiator for the business. And that's what led us to the EPICenter program development over the years.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how much retail crime and retail theft has changed just in the last couple of years. I mean, EPICenter's been around for 4. Think about like the escalation to violence. And I'm assuming as you were looking at some of those factors, that was probably a huge contributing reason to wanting to establish the EPICenter. And like as you were going through that, Mike, clearly it sounds like you found the right path internally to get an EPICenter set up or to get a SOC set up. Like, how did you go about securing that, that leadership buy-in early on? And like, what did you do quickly to try to make sure, like, number one, get a team set up. Number 2, make sure you're driving value early on.
I would say that the very first parts of everything that we started to do was there was a lot of researching, benchmarking, and process mapping. So whiteboarding, figuring out how could a centralized security operations center or the EPICenter provide value for current state processes, and then what are other organizations and businesses, retail, hospitality, restaurants, they look different, but how can we learn about those things and take the values that they create and tie it right back to the associate experience? Because that, at the end of the day, Bobby, is why we're here. We're here to help optimize support for our business partners, HR, legal, retail ops. I mean, the list is long, but also we want to be able to provide that in the moment associate support. So we actually do refer to ourselves internally at Ulta Beauty as an associate service center versus your traditional GSOC or security operations center, which is a differentiator for us.
Yeah, and such a cool way to think about it, right? Like whether it's the end user associates, right, or even like your AP managers, district managers. That's such a unique way to look at, like, we're in the business of making their life easier, of keeping them safe, of helping them save time and be more productive. I think that's just a cool way to think about a SOC and how you're keeping yourself rooted there. I think, Mike, like another question for you on that is you talked a little bit about benchmarking and seeing, what else was out there with different verticals, different industries. Throwing a little curveball at you here, but like, what industries or how did you go about that? Because I think one of the questions I hear a lot from people is like, I'm afraid to benchmark, or it's not I'm afraid to benchmark. I don't know how to start the conversation. So like, where did you go to benchmark? Did you go to RELA? Did you go to NRF? Did you just call? Did you phone a friend? How did you get that intelligence? Yeah.
So everything that you just said, yes, is the answer, because that's exactly what you need to do. There was a lot of different conversations, phone calls. The networks are great. And then conferences, learning about tools, operational processes, services that are out there to support an EPICenter-like model is key. That's what we did as part of our research and road mapping perspective, but it wasn't instantaneous where we came to the business decision with our leaders and our business partners to say, this is the mission for what we want to do. Some security operations out there, they're focused heavily on alarms, and that's cool because that physical security is definitely needed. We are looking towards how do we have the immediate impact for the associate experience going through a critical incident. Usually when a store associate or a leader is calling the epicenter at Ulta Beauty, it's not because something great happens, because they need support in the moment. And that at our core, as we kept that as our guiding compass, helped us decide and add on workflows over time. So if you're grounded in that mission towards what you're trying to achieve, physical security, safety, associate-centric support, there could be a litany of things. I would wager that that is the compass that you should go towards as a leader.
Fantastic. I'm kind of pivoting more now into like building the security operations center, building your epicenter, thinking about structure, design, operational maturity. What roles do you need? All of that. What technology capabilities do you need? Like from your perspective, Mike, having lived this over the last 4 years, you and your leadership team, like what are the key elements of a security operations center that you think are foundational for any retailer, regardless of size, vertical? Like what are those non-negotiables when you think about functionality?
Yeah, this is probably, Bobby, of all the things that we would talk about today, is my favorite topic, because having the right mix of talent, culture, and workflows, that's a winning recipe. So we've identified what are the key and critical roles to drive the business day to day, to support our business partners in the field loss prevention, retail operations, whoever it is. We then prioritize that from a staffing perspective to say, okay, if we're leaning to do 24 hours, 7 days a week, which is ultimately the model that we selected, determining the talent that we need, the experiences of the talent, and then how do you build a world-class culture internally on that team around it? Those are the driving factors that make the epicenter the special place to work that it is today. So I would say from a team perspective, that's core. There's probably going to be more curiosity around workflows. And so this is my second favorite thing to say today, but I'm probably going to refer to it more than once. I apologize if it sounds redundant. We put the associate or the customer, if you want to call it that, at the center of everything we do. So a lot of times when I'm talking to folks at conferences or calls, it's, well, what should we do in the SOC? My answer to that is always start with the customer, meaning the associate, the business partner, the enterprise leader. Determine what their needs are and then work backwards. Build your workflows from the foundation of what good looks like for them, and then everything else will fall in line on a process mapping perspective.
That's awesome. And when you like right out of the gate, as you were thinking about what does the first like 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks look like for the epicenter, like what was a role or what was the type of role that you thought was like a non-negotiable? Like we need this in the team. Was it an analyst? What did you think about when you're just trying to establish it the first 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a very talented, diverse group of analysts that are driving the business, impacting positively the associates' lives every day. And we also have a core of business leaders, operations managers, senior operations manager that help support those routines and help support the business. We also do have a quality and content analyst, which helps us curate training, make sure that processes are unified, supports some of the technology and workflows. So it's between the analyst roles and the leadership roles that really make it a special team.
That's cool. Like, I love the concept that you've all put in place around like that quality analyst, right? Like, how are the calls going? Like, are we maintaining our mission of like associate centric? I think that's real cool to have right out of the gate and make sure. It also probably helps you, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, probably helps you when you're speaking with your leadership around, value, results, impact, being able to know like you're doing a lot of that quality assurance. Mike, I'm a tech nerd. I've got my Meta glasses on right now because I just love technology. Technology is a huge part of any sort of security operation center. What are some of the key capabilities from a technology perspective that you need in an elite security operations center?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, I don't think there's any universal tech stack or any precise software and modules that any one security operations center needs to have. But what I can tell you, kind of calling back to what I said a few minutes ago, the mission for us, primarily, it's associate life and safety support. That helped guide my leaders and I towards where do we want to look at from a technical solution perspective. And so because our centralized focus is life safety support at Ulta Beauty for associates and guests, mass notification and situational intelligence became a priority for us to determine which ones are the best equipped, what has the capabilities that we were looking for. So there's an impression out there that a security operations center needs to be a room with dozens and dozens of, computer screens and informational maps and all that. I would say starting at your core of your mission, figure out how the technology that's available out there throughout the industry can support and drive results in those areas. And then the process decisions for acquiring those resources will come in time.
Fantastic. Yeah. You've always got that vision, right? Of like 1,000 monitors on the wall, whether it's a security operations center, a real-time crime center on the law enforcement side. It's just that Hollywood doesn't help us with that. So it's really, no, it doesn't at all. Same with like NCIS. We're all out there thinking we're forensic examiners. So it's cool for you to come back to that. Like, hey, it doesn't have to be what you're thinking or what what Hollywood tells us it needs to be. Come back to the mission, come back to the vision, achieve that, and then you can grow. And then maybe you have 25 monitors on the wall instead of 10. So makes sense. I think, Mike, like you talked a little bit about workflows, you talked about associate experience being at the root of this. When you were launching the EPICenter, like what were from either workflow perspective or like what were those first priorities for you out of the gate when you launched the EPICenter?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is a continual, perpetual thing that we started day one, and it's ongoing. Is one of the best things that we found value in is going out internally within the business, connecting with our business partners and sharing, hey, this is the EPICenter. This is a roadshow, if you want to call it. Here's our capabilities. How can we help you? That is something that helps build that trust, that brand inside of a brand value. And I would say it's paramount towards the success of building a security operations center. So essentially just starting with that phone call, that business meeting, that presentation that you can give to a cross-functional business partner group to say, okay, here's a one-stop call model that store associates, business partners can use, and here's all the value it can provide. This is something we can offer. How can you leverage us in the future? And then that ideation, that collaboration with partners, it's organic and it flows. And that's something that we've found an incredible amount of value doing.
That's awesome. I think there's also like it's double-edged sword on that too, right? Like you could start to get into alert or call fatigue. If you're ideating, all of a sudden next thing you know is you're handling too much. How are you thinking about some of that alert or call fatigue for your team, and then continuing to focus your scope on what the team does handle?
That's a great question. I will say alert fatigue, it can be a real derailer for the results that you're trying to drive through the business. I would also say, Bobby, and this is just like my realizations over the years, when being a strategist in a SOC, you're looking at how can we create value. There's two forms of currency that I like to call it that drives the most value. It's information accuracy and speed. Those two things combined, that's the currency that helps build trust for a learning purposes. So the reason why I mention that now is there's a lot of technology out there, and believe me, it's unending, especially with the innovation of AI and machine learning. We can tell you everything that happens here, here, and here. I would challenge leaders to determine, is the solution providing the right radar for you? There are solutions out there that a bot can tell you everything that's happening from crime, emergency dispatch, you name it. Do you necessarily have to communicate and send that out as a mass notification? That's where I think knowing your business and knowing your stakeholder and their expectations are really, really important, because without that, you're going to be sending a lot more alerts out in volume, but not necessarily in quantity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that age old, quantity.
Quality over quantity.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I think you also probably, for you and your managers of the epicenter, you've probably gotten pretty good at just saying no to some asks from different parts of the business of like, no, it just doesn't make sense for us right now, or no, we don't have the bandwidth. And I think that's a very unique skill that you've probably added to your repertoire over the last couple of years. Imagining everyone wants you to do more, but you got to hone in on that. I think, Mike, when you look at like today, now, so 4 years into the epicenter, what if you can bucket like the 4 or 5 main workflows? Like, what are the biggest calls you're getting? Is it organized retail crime? Is it, burglary? Like, what are the top 4 that your team's fielding right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. There's a lot of different things that relate to crime that happens in the stores, around the stores, distribution centers that the team usually will be able to handle. So to say our exact workflows, I can't go that deep, but I can say that crime mitigation, critical incident support, those are all the things. If it connects back to the associate experience and elevating life and safety for associates and guests at Ulta Beauty, I guarantee you it's the priority of our workflows.
Fantastic. And I think you're kind of getting a little bit more, tactical and putting on my Auror hat here for my day. It's unique watching, having Ulta been a partner of ours for many years. I think the way that you stood up the Security Operations Center, the epicenter, and how you've built Auror into that is very unique. And I think it's important for the audience to understand. So when you think about the epicenter, like how does Auror today fit into your day-to-day operations?
That's a great question. And now I'll just be transparent and let everybody on the call know that I'm a gigantic nerd. So I'm going to use a couple of nerdology phrases, if that's okay. So thinking about Auror, essentially, how do they fit into the day-to-day operations? I would say the Security Operations Center, the epicenter, and those centralized workflows supporting over 1,500 stores and our distribution centers, Auror is a force multiplier. So, and when I say that, what I mean is Auror multiplies the intelligence by volume and quality because of the way in which we centralize the event intake and leveraging the tools. There's a lot of different modules that Auror can offer, but curated intelligence that lives inside of the Intel and the Investigate modules is key. That forms, Bobby, what I would say the foundation for how we can drive those results to increase the amount of intelligence that we collect inside of the epicenter, and then how we can share that with our designated business partners in ORC, field loss prevention, you name it. So that's been a force multiplier for us in those ways. I would also want to mention and call out connect the dots. It's been, in my opinion, a collaborative game changer because linking offenders through spatial analytics, which is essentially what Auror is doing in the background. The reason why that's important, and here's the nerd phrase coming from Mike here, but it's the patterns and offenders of the bad actors. Getting that visibility by acquiring Auror and maximizing its capabilities, it's really like the James Webb telescope in the sky. If you're a nerd, you're going to know what that is. That allows people to see deeper pictures in interstellar space and different galaxies and planets and whatnot. So Auror has essentially helped us unlock different viewpoints on pictures that we would never have seen without it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's really good insight. I will be honest, I had you Google the James Webb telescope when we were talking earlier, as you were using that example, just for my own personal knowledge. I think it makes sense, right? Like it's that vision, it's that deep level understanding of what that person has done in the past, what they're capable of doing in the future. And I think like as you've integrated that more into your team's ability to triage, investigate, prevent, get it out to the field, what's the measurable outcomes that have come out of that, or the outcomes that stand out for you from all of that integration?
Yeah, I mean, the outcomes, the performance results, all of those are key. I cannot overstate this though. Having the right mix of talent and culture and really helping guide the development of the program, the results speak for themselves. But I think what you're probably referring to is the ROI, the tangible values. So hard savings, soft savings, they come in a variety of categories, right? So for example, I already mentioned, like, between a centralized security operations center and Aura, we're getting faster intelligence, which helps us, our partners in ORC, build stronger external cases with law enforcement partners. I mean, those are very, very measurable and great savings. And you can articulate that, through your metrics. The labor and efficiency, though, are some of the soft returns. Like, how can we make processes and work easier for our business partners by intaking those things? Those necessarily can't be measured by dollars and cents, but being able to provide business partner support is key. And then lastly, I said it before, the most invaluable ROI of all, in my opinion, is helping an associate navigate through a very challenging situation. It could be a ORC with violence situation. It could be assault and battery. It could be a litany of things that shouldn't happen in retail, but unfortunately do. Having a person that specializes in that, in the security operations center, the EPICenter, to be able to say, hey, how can I help? Okay, this is what we're going to do next. That guidance right there makes all the difference. So we hire to soft skills. We really do look at that being the principal matter, because at the end of the day, it's the associate, the caller, the customer experience, and the business partner experience that matters the most, bar none.
Yeah, it's such good insight, right? Like, I think so often we get focused on like financial ROI, tangible ROI. Like, I mean,
They're there. Yeah.
Right. Like they're there, but I think the bigger impact, to your point, is that softer side, like that. What is the associate feeling? How can we help them in, to your point, probably their most challenging day in retail, when they're calling you.
Perfect way to put it.
Yeah. And that, like, to be there for them is fantastic for that. I think, like, Mike, you obviously talked a little bit about the ROI, what you're looking at. The other aspect of this is a security operations center isn't a little investment from an enterprise perspective. It's a large investment of people, time, technologies. There's a big cost to that. When you're talking about ROI, like, how are you sharing that up with, your leader, your broader leadership? And, like, what does that look like for you? And maybe what are some of the tips and tricks you can give the audience around how to do that well and to keep speaking the value day in and day out that your EPICenter is driving?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. We have a very supportive senior leadership team, executive team, and SVP of loss prevention here at Ulta Beauty. And being able to tell our story through quarterly business reviews, regular business updates, business partner conference calls, wherever there's an opportunity to say, here's what we did to be able to support these events and these associates, is key. So that's why I was saying before, it's that continuity of education. Here's our capabilities. Here's what we could do. How can we help you, on top of saying, here's what we did looking back, and then learning from opportunities that maybe didn't go as well. That is the refinement piece that just takes time. And I'll tell you, it's a journey. But at the end of the day, to be able to start small, think big. And what I mean by that is you can monitor alarms. You can do internal theft investigations in a security operations center. You can provision access control. There's a litany of things that can be done there. Think outside of just the loss prevention specialty areas and physical security, and see if there's an interest in the organization for a security operations center to support and improve those experiences for partners that have oversight to it. That's the best answer I can give.
That's awesome. We talked about that associate during the ROI conversation, that associate being, like, in the most challenging day in retail for them.
Yeah.
Like, how are you grabbing some of, after the fact, your team's helped them out? Are you sense checking with the associates? How are they feeling about the service from the EPICenter? Like, how has it changed their feeling on safety, productivity in the store? Are you gathering intelligence on that and then sharing it up with your leadership team at the same time?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There's a variety of KPIs and measurable results. There's the amount of alerts sent out per quarter. It could be the types of alerts. It could be SLAs around what the quality for those alerts, were they sent out on time. You can slice and dice the numbers in so many ways, but the one line that I go to as part of the business reporting, and then I look forward to sharing out, is what we call HMD. How's my driving? So EPICenter excels at that in the moment support, helping the associate that called in, and then following up with, hey, here's an optional survey. How did we do? And we measure that and we get the feedback back to be able to say, this is what we did last quarter and how well we did from an associate satisfaction perspective. That is a terrific indicator of success. And it's something wonderful to share with business leaders to say what the impact of the team is over time.
Yeah. And like, you've been in obviously a few stores with you, Mike, and over the last couple of years, it's so cool. Like, it's just me getting on my soapbox. It's so cool to like hear from those store managers, those associates in the store. Like, they talk about your team, right? And we see it even on the Auror side, like where they mention your team in events, right? That are getting reported into Auror, whether it's from your team or their team. Like, there's such a collaborative approach to it. It's really cool to see, and they definitely are finding a ton of value out of you. So I think that's hats off to you and a crew that sit day in and day out at the EPICenter. It's really cool to see.
I just wanted to say real quick too, Bobby, it's the collaboration that I can't state enough between our field loss prevention partners, our ALPMs, our RLPMs. We have a dedicated ORC team. That collaboration and connection, there's no way we could do what we do without their help. So I just wanted to call to mind the value that we share with our business partners internally.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Rory's on the call, but if he's not, we'll send this clip to him. Shout out to Rory. Hope you're doing well, Rory. You're crushing it with the ORC team, and I know you've got a good group. I already know I'm going to get a text message from Mark on his team that's going to be like, "Why didn't you shout me out too as well?" So we'll see how this goes.
Love you, Mark.
Yeah, love you, Mark. So there I go. I got distracted again. Mike, when we think about, obviously, you've been on a 4-year journey. You established a great EPICenter, a great security operations center. You've shared a little bit about some of the learnings, lesson learned, high level, but I'd love to like go a little bit deeper there and like what, like on your journey since beginning to today, like what is one or two of the key lessons that you think is really important for the audience to take away from today? I think not even like the people that want to go stand up a SOC, but more of like, what have you learned? What have been your biggest lessons in establishing this SOC so that others, can take from those lessons?
There's a lot that happens, and I'll tell you what, designing processes, unfortunately, doesn't always go the way you think it will. So something I've learned, and I keep front and center as a leader, as do my team, is we have to be nimble and adapt quickly. We have to be comfortable pivoting, even though we may design a workflow to do X, Y, and Z in amount of time, and this alert goes there. Sometimes we have to adjust that, and being comfortable to do that around the associate and stakeholder, meaning business partner experience, is key. So that's something that I keep at the forefront of my mind at all the times. The second thing is, you mentioned this about 10 minutes ago, and I just wanted to double click on it for a second. So labor capacity is a commodity inside of the SOC. So there's a lot that the team could be asked to do, but being mindful of how does the ask impact the team's time and labor, because their finite resources should also be something that's constantly measured against. Occasionally, there will be things that it's like, we may be asked to do something and it's not a no as much as a, tell me more about that. Help me understand. And then we ideate and we find something that we can do to help support. So that's been integral for us to be able to listen. You spoke, we listened, as we say at Ulta Beauty, and then we find a way to support as we're able according to our labor capacity. And then the last thing, and this goes in all things like retail, LP, and business, but align early and often. I can't say it enough. Early and often with key business partners. There's an ask for this. What would you see as the risk here? How would you like to receive alerting for this specific critical incident? How quickly does this person need to be notified? So constantly double checking to make sure partners are aligned and those synergies there between the stakeholder and the associates that you're trying to connect the stakeholder with is key.
That's fantastic. Mike, I have one more question for you. It's going to focus on some of the people that are on the call listening. I also am looking at the Q&A because there's been a lot of questions that have been dropped in. So I want to make sure we get enough time for you to answer. There's some great questions in there. Mike, I know you and I have talked about imposter syndrome before. I think everyone at some point in their career suffers from it. It's a real world thing. If there's someone on the call right now on the webinar thinking about, hey, like we don't have a security operations center at my company. I would love to, either stand one up, or I would love to get into a role that I'm leading or participating in a security operations center. And maybe they're afraid to raise their hand. They're not willing to take in that jump quite yet. Like, give them some advice. Like, what are the skill sets that you'd recommend that they, add and focus in on to help them achieve that desire to stand up a SOC or to lead a SOC one day? What are those skill sets you'd recommend that they focus in on?
Yeah, great question. I would say most of the people that I know in my role in other companies, even outside of retail, that to get to the privilege to lead, design, and support a SOC didn't have much or any of experience doing it before. It's figuring out what the team needs. So being a people leader, that is first and foremost. Figuring out the talent, what the talent needs, and then driving positive culture impacts is thing number one. I said it a little while earlier, but that's just how important it is. Those translatable skills for the technology, SaaS solutions, it could be integrations with IT. If you haven't actually done those things, it can sound a little intimidating, but I would just say that we get to work in a wonderful industry where there's a lot of really helpful people out there that are willing to provide guidance and, hey, here's something that I learned. My recommendation would be, if you think that there's a need for a security operations center in your enterprise, map out the business case. And if after that you're convinced and after you socialized it, this is something that you'd like to do, there's a litany of people out there, myself included, that are a phone call away to say, hey, how can I help? And I firmly believe that as a business partner and leader inside of the LP industry.
Yeah, spot on, man. Use that Rolodex. Don't be afraid to raise your hand. Don't be afraid to fail either. I mean, hey, like, personal experience, I've been at Auror for almost 7 years. Yes, today is my last day at Auror. Excited to do the webinar with you as my last action. But if I look back at those 7 years, there were so many moments of just fear for me of like, hey, I knew APLP, but standing up a solution provider space here in North America. But the biggest thing that, like, the biggest benefit I figured out fast is fail as fast as you can, learn from it. The Rolodex. Like, I feel bad for King Rogers the first couple of years. I was calling King all the time, like, hey, am I doing something right? Like, how would you handle this? Use that Rolodex, use that network. Don't be afraid to use it. I know, Mike, you're a great resource for anyone on the call that wants to talk through this space. There's hundreds of those type of resources. So use that phone as a tool for your own personal development. I think it's a great insight from you, Mike, and I appreciate that. So, Mike, I think there's only 10 questions in the Q&A. I don't want to step on the audience who is, wants to ask questions, doesn't want to hear from me anymore. So we're going to bring back Julie. Julie, I'll let you, take it from here, run through those questions, and then we can wrap it up once we get to the Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mike, I appreciate you being able to share as much as you did for everyone on the call. We're saying high level. We're not getting into specific vendors or tactics. So if we kind of skirt some of your question, please know Mike has, just as he mentioned, offered to be that ear. And I think that that's great to offer some advice if you need that. So kicking it off, and I know you kind of mentioned that out of COVID, some potential situations or something might have happened that kind of maybe arose the need for a SOC center. Did you have elements of the SOC already existing, or did you start it from the ground up, like have a complete blank slate when you started?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It was a blank slate. There was a lot of ideology, into physical security, investigations, ORC, and we had that canvas to create from. So at the end of the day, yeah, it wasn't something that we took and then continuously improved. We designed it from the ground up through the lens of associate experience first, and everything else that's led after that has been success from that.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So there's so many questions coming in. I do really like this question because I think it's maybe not just diminished, but taking something off their plate is probably the better way that I would put it. But the question came in, do you feel like some of the responsibilities of the field LP folks have been diminished by the SOC center? So again, I think it gives time back when you might be able to take stuff, but any comments there?
I can say honestly, I don't think so. For the things that we've methodically done and created in alignment with our field LP business partners, none of it's been, hey, we're going to start doing this. And then there's that, like, how do we proceed from there? It's that inflection point. It starts with, how can we help? Now, this is years ago, But that conversation led to, we can really use help with X, Y, and Z. And that started to provide us a roadmap, if you will, to say, what would it look like if we took this topical area of loss prevention and put it into what we're doing? It goes back to what I said about 10 minutes ago, partner early and often. We did that intentionally to make sure that the value we're providing the EPICenter isn't stepping on toes. It's uplifting from a support perspective.
I love that. And when we talk about actually being able to support all the different facets of our business in different areas that we're supporting, I really enjoyed how you talked about you're reaching out to other departments. And I can't stress enough that just opens that line of communication. So I really appreciated that you had talked about that. The question that had come in that kind of goes around that talks about, are there specific process maps and workflows that you have? And you talked about the fact that you can pivot on a dime. So I'm assuming you kind of started with some static or standardized what you thought those workflows could be, and then you were able to customize those afterwards, pending working with these other departments?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's spot on. There's a lot of the introduction work. Like I said, starting slow was so critical for us. We wanted to design workflows that support life safety, ORC, intelligence collection, all of that. We wanted to get really, really good at those things first before we added anything else. And that was methodical per the business plan. But even through that, the workflow, getting feedback in the moment, say, this is great, but it could be better if you did this. That's the pivot element, not so much the, well, I'm sorry, this isn't really what our SOC is meant to do. That's why I always say, if you partner early and often with the business partner, just say, here's a menu. Like, I'm a foodie, so sorry, I have to use that metaphor. Here's a menu. Would you like to order something today? And sometimes you have to create a custom recipe for the stakeholder. That's the best analogy I can give you. Sorry, I'm a nerd and foodie.
I absolutely loved that analogy. That was wonderful. So as far as notifications, especially when we talk about safety for our associates, what do notifications look like? And if you can share that for your stores.
Yeah, notifications are delivered in different modalities. And, there's a lot of tools out there. Some do SMS text, some do an app. We have a solution that does a little bit of everything really well. And so when there is a critical incident, an escalated event, a store contact, that's the best way I could put it. If there's a call from an Ulta Beauty store, and let's say it's somebody came in here with a weapon, there is a precise workflow that ties back to that topic, which then goes to specific people. Think about it like a workflow tree. Who needs to know and when? And so all of those things are mapped out due to the mass notification capabilities that we've invested in.
And I like that they're customized per the different type of event. So I think that speaks volumes right there. All right, this question came in, and again, we're staying high level, so you may be able to speak to it. You may not be able to touch upon it. That's totally fine. That may be a private kind of personal conversation to just talk about potential things people could do. But you spoke about technology and that it's an important part of operations. This person is working in a surveillance department and asked, what types of technology are y'all using to improve crime mitigation and incident response? So some of the examples that they had given, I'm going to avoid the word recognition. So facial match, cameras, hard tags, EAS, gates, alarms, etc. I know when I've gone into Ulta myself, I've seen some of those. Some of them are physical. It's hard to miss.
Yeah.
Let's just say, if it was your dream world, what would you like to have, regardless of what Ulta has or not? Maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Just looking at all the things that are available on the industry, that's a pretty wide open question. I mean, like, there are security operations centers that I'm aware of that I'm a little jelly. They're using things like drones and things like that. All of those things are capabilities that are potential. Open source intelligence, there's active listening tools for social media. It's finding the right balance and tying those things back to what you're trying to solve for in the business. So I would say, whoever has it, phone a friend, like, give me a call. We could probably talk about it. But at the same time, the answer is yes, we've probably considered it or haven't. So
I love that answer. And I think you were spot on by saying, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? Don't go get everything, because everything's not going to help you out. I mean, don't get me wrong, something might, but sometimes what's the saying? Too much data is just that, too much data. So yeah, 100%. I love this question. If you're able to share, how did you originally scope your team's size, and how has it expanded in the last 4 years?
Oh, that's a terrific question. I can't go into specifics about all that, but I can say we have 100% Ulta Beauty associates. That much I can say. And we hire internally because it connects right back to the business. And like all those things work very well for us by hiring the team and then having them staffed in the epicenter. Remember, we're 24 hours, 363 days a year. And the incredible talent that we've been able to hire directly links back to that deep connection with business partners, store associates. I could probably say too, some of our employees in the epicenter are former associates. So they have that knowledge and understanding towards what a critical incident or a theft event or whatever feels like in a store. And that's why I say we are really proud of the diverse talent that we have on the leadership and the analyst level. And I think that's a key thing that a lot of people should consider when they're figuring out how many people, what hours we working. It all goes back to the mission and vision.
No, and I love that y'all are 24 hours. I mean, that is impressive right there, because that just shows that, the business case was made and heard. And so I think that's amazing. All right. I love this question. Are there any certifications or education that align with the investigations that are conducted in the epicenter that you would recommend?
I mean, there's a lot of certifications out there. I would not call epicenter workflows investigative in nature for the specific question, but there are different things I could say, certifications that some of the leadership team members and some of our talent is looking at doing. Some of them have your regular LP certifications. Some of our talent worked in field loss prevention. So those things like LPC CF5, they exist, but to target like a specific and endorse a specific like security operations center, crisis management. So I can't say one comes to mind that I would say you need to go get that.
Fair enough. But yes, the LPC does cover quite a bit. So feel free to chat with me. All right. Does your epicenter manage other programs like threat assessment, business continuity, or executive protection?
We support the full gamut of those things. From a RACI perspective, the ownership side may look differently depending upon what the subject matter is. So, for example, there's different moments in time where we've considered, do we take more of an active leadership role in crisis management, or do we sit on the side of support with information and intelligence gathering? So right now, I will say we are immersed in all of those key cross-functional areas, but we're not necessarily the leading agent when it comes to the responsibility versus accountability applications.
Fair point. And I think it's with loss prevention overall, we have our hands in a lot of different aspects of the business. So that does not surprise me at all that you support, but you're not necessarily responsible for it. Okay, this question's really interesting. So I'm going to ask it and then make a couple comments before turning it over. What emerging meta vulnerabilities in SOC design itself could potentially be vulnerable in the future? Have you discovered any systematic blind spots during a certain incident or event? So like, have you gone and reflected after an event happened and said, man, I wish we'd have known this sooner, or if we had this, like, what has that looked like for you guys? And how often do you review your entire SOC center, and what could make it better?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thinking about the answer, though, I would say a lot of what happens inside of a SOC, you have direct control over workflows, processes, things like that. A variable that I would have cautionary tales about is there sometimes to where you're testing or integrating a new piece of software that everything's AI. I mean, I think everybody knows that everything is AI these days. And if the AI component for something you're provisioning to uplift, let's say it's social media intelligence collection, if the AI, the bot doesn't behave the correct way, you might miss things that would otherwise be seen by, say, a situational intelligence software application. So I would say from a key learnings perspective, it's important to diversify and see what works, but also be cautious for a solution is just as good as what it says it's going to do. I would test it to make sure that accuracy and speed, those two currencies I talked about, are there before you integrate it outside of a sandbox environment. So, yeah.
Yeah, fair point. All right, Bobby, I'm going to ask this question to you. The question is, how does your solution help the retail industry reduce theft? And I'm going to say by identification. So I'm going to partially answer that for you, but feel free to add on to that. And then, do retailers need to upload videos themselves? And can they select specific characteristics or features of the videos? Not sure exactly what that means, but maybe you have more of an idea.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one, Julie. Thank you. Mike talked a lot about how Auror is empowering his team to keep people safe, reduce theft. And when you look at Auror, it's about awareness, number one. So as intelligence is coming into the platform, we're able to capture those key characteristics, right? Descriptions. What are they wearing? What are they stealing? What are they doing? What are their behaviors like? We're able to ingest that. We're able to build out person profiles of that subject so you can see the totality of that individual's offenses, which leads to better awareness. So now as those store managers, they're more aware of every time Julie comes in, she's going to do this, she's going to have a weapon, so they can avoid that. Or they can provide great customer service, guest service, depending on which retailer you're at, and then hopefully get a prevention or have them not even try to steal product to begin with. Like that's really the biggest thing with Auror. And if you're adding in, manual video, if you have an integration with your VMS, video can flow into Auror. We do a lot of magic with that video and with those images to help drive even more awareness.
I love it when magic happens on the back end. All right, before I close us out, any closing thoughts from you, Mike? And then I'll flip it to Bobby.
I would just say that in the topic of security operations, the EPICenter in general, at the end of the day, the true value of a SOC, in my opinion only, it's not measured necessarily like how many alerts are you kicking out and being responded to. It's measured by how well the program is improving its support for business partners and associates throughout their most challenging moments. I think Bobby said it perfectly. Sometimes it's their hardest day of their careers in retail that something bad happened. To be able to measure success against how well you did in the eyes of that associate is key. And the business partner that you support throughout that moment is also key. Everything else, all those values should come second. So that's my closing thought.
No, I love that. It kind of goes back to, it's not about what you did or what you said. It's about how you made them feel in that moment.
Right.
All right, Bobby, any last closing thoughts from you?
People first, absolutely love the thinking there, Mike, and everything you've done with the EPICenter, everything you've done as a leader. Appreciate you taking the opportunity here, an hour away from your busy schedule, to share your learnings with everyone on the webinar. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is great. Thanks for the invite.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us closed out. If you're interested in getting your loss prevention qualified or your loss prevention certified certification, or you want to know more about it, feel free to contact me. But also feel free to leverage this promo code. It's LPF 2025. It's going to be available through the end of the year. It is also eligible for lifetime membership, and that is definitely beneficial whenever you're going to waive those recertification fees. Also, Auror will be at Big Show in New York here coming up in January. They're going to be in booth 2503, so make sure to go visit them. And then also, we do give away 5 scholarships for every single webinar that we host. So be on the lookout for your email. You do have to have been present to attend. The scholarships are non-transferable, and you'll have 5 business days to claim those scholarships. So be on the lookout for those. And then last but not least, thank you again for Auror sponsoring today's webinar. If you are interested, and hopefully you enjoyed today's webinar, but if you're interested in future webinars, we do have that QR code to register for notifications on the left side there. Also, you can follow us on LinkedIn because all of our webinars are listed on LinkedIn and we share those out. We do have webinars on all different types of topics, all different days. We'd love for you to continue joining us, learning, and just keeping that education flowing, whether it's product, technology, or leadership training. And also, if you have not already signed up for the free LP magazine, if you're in the US, you can get that free 4 times a year mailed to you. You're going to use that QR code in the middle of the screen. But once again, thank you so much to Auror for sponsoring. Bobby, Mike, it was absolutely great to have you join us. That insight was incredible. I totally appreciate the conversations and the offer to have people actually reach out to you. But hopefully everyone has a great rest of the week and a very happy holidays.
Thank you for listening to the Retail Crime Intelligence Podcast by Auror. Don't forget to follow and subscribe on your favorite podcast app.